Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good afternoon. I bid to our honorable guest, Mr. Alan Razak, master teachers, students and my fellow STAX members. I'm Muhammad Tajmizan bin Muhammad Tajmail, the Secretary of STAX.
And I'm Ilhan Arif, Vice Leader of Public Relations Team from STAX. We'll be the moderators of today.
Welcome everyone to the ASiS Human Trafficking Awareness Week workshop. The goal within the workshop focuses on raising awareness regarding the human trafficking issues in Malaysia. Under the guidance of Project Liber 8, we are really proud to launch our initiatives by organizing this workshop. Without further ado, I would like to invite Abdul Alim bin Muhammad Nizam to recite the doa. Please welcome.
Ummul Kitab Al-Fatihah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim. Hanya padamu saja kami panjangkan kesyukuran atas segala rahmat dan berkat-Mu. Bersempena dengan majlis pada hari ini, kami memohon inayah dan taufik-Mu. Kurniakanlah kesejahteraan dan kebahagiaan kepada kami. Bukalah hati-hati kami dan lapangkanlah dada kami supaya kami dapat mengisi ilmu dan pengetahuan yang berguna untuk agama, bangsa dan negara. Kami memohon kepadamu agar engkau berkatilah majlis ini dengan limpahan rahmat-Mu. Semoga segala usaha kami dalam menjayakan majlis ini mendapat keredaan dan hidayah. Sesungguhnya pada hari ini kami berkumpul kerana-Mu, Ya Allah. Kami berkumpul untuk menimba ilmu, bertukar pendapat, menyumbangkan buah fikiran, menghubungkan silaturahim dan memberi sokongan ke arah meningkatkan lagi prestasi kami. Kami mohon kekuatan dan hadrat-Mu, Ya Allah, supaya kami yang hadir pada hari ini, agar kami dapat melaksanakan segala kebajikan. Dan kami pohon perlindungan dengan Engkau daripada melakukan keburukan. Ya Allah, kurniakanlah kepada kami kekayaan ilmu, pengetahuan dan hiasilah diri kami dengan sifat lemah lembut. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina azabannar. Wassallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wasallam. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin.
Amin, amin, ya Rabbal Alamin. Moving on, I would like to invite Akil bin Zulkifli, the High Committee of STAX, to deliver his opening speech. The floor is yours, Akil.
First of all, thank you to the Master of Ceremony for giving me the opportunity to deliver my speech. Assalamualaikum and a very pleasant afternoon. I bid to our honorable guest, Mr. Alan Razak, master teachers, STAX members, and my fellow friends. In this modern era, human exploitation activities are getting out of hand. For your information, there are more than 2.4 million people suffer the misery of this humiliating and degrading crime. Of the individuals trafficked each year, 17% are trafficked for the purposes of forced labor, while 80% are trafficked for sexual exploitation. Children, women, migrants, refugees, and internally displaced persons are particularly vulnerable to human trafficking. Human trafficking is also an issue of economic and social development. However, this crime is not simply the symptom of a fragile or poor country. It occurs in every region. This global threat requires a coordinated and meaningful response at all levels, local, regional, and international. So, Science Alam Shah Teens Against Exploitation, or well known as STAX, is an initiative under Project Liber 8 mentorship program, where the target is to battle the issue of human trafficking in Malaysia. This movement consists of 20 volunteers among ASiS students with the guidance of few professional facilitators from Project Liber 8. Our main objective is to spread awareness among students about the real meaning of human trafficking. Nonetheless, teenagers are most likely to be the victim of this reckless act. Therefore, help and join us to fight against human trafficking, exploitation, and oppression, and stand up for freedom and human dignity. The battle for freedom and justice is never hopeless, but it is never finally won. Every morning, we must wake up ready to fight it again. Last but not least, I hope everyone will have a great time throughout the workshop. Before I end my speech, if you inquire more information on this campaign, feel free to follow our social media on Instagram at stax.movement and at stax_movement on Twitter. Thank you and Assalamualaikum.
For a reminder to everyone present, you can download your e-certificate when you have finished the program. Just be sure to check the comment box in the below on Zoom so you can fill in your information. All right, everyone. Before we continue our session, let's first learn about our honorable speaker today, Mr. Alan Razak. Mr. Azlan is a focused advocate and solicitor with a solid background of developing creative case strategies and writing persuasive briefs. With an astonishing 7 years of experience in trial preparation and drafting legal documents. In 2013, he graduated with Bachelor of Laws honors from University Utara Malaysia, graduating second class upper. On the same year, he was admitted to the bar by High Court of Malaya. He is currently pursuing his Bachelor of Arts honors in English Language and Literature in University of Nottingham, Malaysia. Moving on, Mr. Azlan's professional legal experience started as a legal assistant in Messrs. Shen Delamore & Co. in 2014 until 2015. He continued his legal practice as a partner of Messrs. Azlan Shah and Partners. We are really proud with his achievements. As of now, he has established his own firm under the name of Messrs. Alan Razak and Associates. A few notable and related involvements of Mr. Azlan includes being the adjudicator of national level intervarsity mooting competitions and cyber law moot competition. Not only that, Mr. Azlan has also been invited to be the speaker for various forums on advocacy and legal matters targeted for young lawyers. It does not stop there. Mr. Azlan has also wrote various matters of public interest issues nationwide whilst providing the legal perspective on the subject. During this, Mr. Azlan has successfully published more than 30 articles on the site Astro Awan, with key area of expertise in criminal and civil litigation, conflict resolution, contract negotiation, and advocacy and legal training. Mr. Azlan is a force to be reckoned with. Without further ado, let us welcome Mr. Azlan as our honorable speaker to continue the session. Please welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for the very warm words. First of all, may I just ask if I'm heard loud and clear enough?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay. Well, I was informed by my assistant that this session was going to take place in both Bahasa and English. So, but it's fine. I'll try my best to accommodate the need of everybody present. Actually, when I was first informed that my audience would be those in the range of perhaps 14 to 17-year-olds,
Yes.
I was a bit hesitant because I understand that kids these days are much more intellectual and brighter than everyone. I mean, I didn't know at the time when I was 14, I didn't know what, human trafficking was. All I was busy myself with at the time was just, I don't know, just faffing about and literally doing nothing. So this is very good that everyone is actually putting up this effort to know more about human trafficking. It's before I go on, may I just ask what time do I have until to speak here? Ame?
Until 4.
4. Oh,
Yes.
so I have 1 hour. Right. I'll try my best.
Uh,
Yeah, but I believe everyone is just as well informed as I hope I am in this matter. So I hope that we can always share and exchange whatever it is that we may have to offer to one another. I may be a lawyer, but it's understandable that I'm a lawyer now because I'm old, so I have to work and earn a living and pay my bills. But that doesn't mean that my knowledge is there, that you cannot question, contend, or even tell me to my face, Alan, you were wrong. Yeah, because at the end of the day, knowledge is something that we both share and update for the sake of development, and that's actually the very beauty of knowledge. Human trafficking is actually a very interesting subject. I am personally interested in this matter. That falls in the field of criminal law. Yeah. So when one calls himself a lawyer, there are many fields that a lawyer may want to be involved in. So there is a thing called civil litigation. So that's when I decide to sue you on the basis of defamation, for example, or we enter into a contract and the contract doesn't quite take off well, and we end up fighting and we bring this matter to court. So that's civil litigation. But there is also another discipline of law called criminal law. So criminal law is when you are not sued by another party, but you are prosecuted by the public prosecutor through the Office of Attorneys General Chamber ataupun Jabatan Peguam Negara. And when you are accused of a crime and that prosecution starts, and arising from there, you are brought to court, you are then called an accused person ataupun tertuduh. Okay, so then a lawyer that represents you in court for whatever it is that you are charged with is then called a defense counsel ataupun peguam bela. So yeah, there are many instances where I've been engaged to represent my client on various charges. One of which is something similar to this, not exactly human trafficking, but when we talk about human trafficking in general, it is general, and that can actually be branched off into many sub areas. But first of all, let me just put a parameter within which I'm gonna, deliver my lecture. I do not propose to talk at great length about the law in general, or I'm not giving a law lecture on human trafficking. I just returned from court. I spent about 4 hours speaking in front of a judge and talked, and I listening to me argue in matters of law would be the last thing ever that you might want to please yourself with. You don't want that, yeah. But when we talk about human trafficking, what is human trafficking? Human trafficking adalah pemerdagangan manusia. So dalam pemerdagangan manusia, bukan hanya seseorang itu diperdagangkan, dijual dalam konteks yang literal. Yeah, you don't simply get a group of people, put them in the middle of a square and get people to buy them as slaves, macam dalam cerita Piramli tu. No, it doesn't work that way. It could work that way. I mean, if you see that happening, of course that would fall within the definition of human trafficking, but that is not necessarily the only thing that one may immediately define as an exercise or a practice of human trafficking. Sebab dalam human trafficking ni dia ada banyak, there are many areas to look at. Traffickings in terms of, first of all, sexual exploitation, perhaps in commercial sense, and perhaps in typical labor in terms of slavery, or children for that matter. And you were right in pointing out child labor dekat situ. Bukannya semestinya bila kita dengar pasal human trafficking, it's all about sex, prostitutions. Of course, prostitution is one of those, but that is not the only thing. So I've actually prepared a very brief slide presentation, and we might want to go straight to slide number 2 if there is someone kind enough to help me with the navigation of these slides, please.
Okay.
Yeah, let's just go to slide number 2. Actually, it's very weird because I'm talking to myself. It's like talking to myself because I see my big fat face on the screen. So how may I see everyone on screen so that I can ensure that everyone understands and
Oh,
that
yeah,
we
sure,
can
sure.
actually interact much better? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I tak tahu lah you all faham ke, you all tidur ke apa ke kan?
On top, right on top, there are view.
Right corner.
Yes, right corner. That.
Okay, that's the very thing that I hate about having to deal with technology, stuff like the IT. Okay, yeah, I see everyone.
Yes.
Sorry. Okay, so can we just go straight to perhaps the second slide? Okay, so what is human trafficking? So the criminal recruitment of humans by force or deception or exploitation. So maksud kat sini adalah sangat jelas bila ada unsur-unsur recruitment. What is recruitment in Malay? Unsur-unsur dia bukan pada apa dia?
Mengajak.
Mengajak dengan tujuan untuk bekerja. That is recruitment. The fact that I invite you to go out for dinner is not recruitment. Recruitment is when I ask you if you want to work for me in return for money. Yeah. So apabila seseorang itu diajak untuk bekerja, okay, dalam mana konteks pekerjaan tu dilakukan dengan cara paksa, penipuan ataupun dengan cara mengeksploitasi. Apa beza mengeksploitasi dengan penipuan? Tipu tu you tipu lah, tapi exploit ni I tak tipu. Tapi cara
ambil kesempatan.
Well, that is one of those things. Mengambil kesempatan, yes, that could fall under exploitation. Tapi you sendiri pun tak tahu sebenarnya orang tengah ambil kesempatan dekat you. Tapi kalau orang tahu, you tahu orang tengah ambil kesempatan dan you ikut, you go along with the flow, then that could fall within the context of deception. Tapi satu benda kita kena faham, selagi mana perkara-perkara ini dibuat dengan cara paksaan ataupun dengan cara eksploitasi dan juga dengan cara penipuan, ya. Dan ini boleh terjumlah dalam bahasa undang-undang, it amounts to something, dia terjumlah kepada perlakuan pemerdagangan manusia. Kalau kita tengok dekat situ, pemerdagangan manusia boleh berlaku dengan macam-macam cara. Saya tunjukkan 3, pelacuran, prostitution, construction labor. Kalau kita tengok kan, all our non-Malaysian workers working very hard days and night and they end up not being paid. So that's a separate matter. But the issue does not just end with them not being paid. It could go beyond the non-payment issue. It could be an issue of them being brought into the country with different promises and they end up doing entirely different things. So that could also be an issue of trafficking. Pelacuran macam biasalah, kalau kita tengok dekat mana-mana tiba-tiba je ada macam-macam warga asing, tak semestinya warga asing, orang Malaysia pun boleh kena kan, dan domestic work ni kalau kita tengok contohnya ialah macam pembantu rumah. Tak semua pembantu rumah itu melalui ejen dan tak semua ejen tu adalah ejen yang sah. Ketika mana ejen tu tidak sah dan orang-orang tu dibawa dengan cara menipu, dengan cara tidak mengikut peruntukan undang-undang, that seriously bears the danger of that amounting to an act of human trafficking. Jadi dalam keadaan macam ni, macam-macam keadaan yang kita boleh tengok yang boleh terjumlah kepada human trafficking. macam mana kita nak tahu elemen dia dekat sini secara general. Sebenarnya banyak lagi elemen-elemen dia yang lebih spesifik. Secara general kalau kita tengok ada recruitment. Okay, recruitment dengan cara paksaan, penipuan ataupun exploitation. Tetapi ada juga orang kadang-kadang tanya, what if someone is brought into the country to do something that is not illegal? Contohnya, bekerja sebagai pembantu rumah. Pembantu rumah tak salah, tapi aktiviti pelacuran salah. Tapi menjadi pembantu rumah tak salah kan? Tapi kalau macam tu adakah tak dikira human trafficking? The answer is absolutely yes. Sebab selagi mana perkara itu dilakukan dengan tidak mengikut undang-undang peruntukan undang-undang. Contohnya macam saya cakap tadi, contohnya a group of perhaps youngsters, macam you all semua kan 17 and then nak kerja lah kan, nak dapat duit, nak beli iPhone, okay? And then you all, ada orang kata, okay, jom kita dalam 5-6 orang, cari 5-6 orang, and then I akan bawa you all pergi KL kerja. Kalau you all duduklah dekat utara contohnya kan, okay, kita akan bawa daripada Kedah ke KL. Okay, you pun kata, okay lah, tapi seorang kena bayar dalam 5,000, tapi gaji you all akan dapat seorang 10,000. So actually berbaloi lah untuk bulan pertama, tapi bulan kedua dah dapat 10,000 balik. Jadi you all semua excited dapat 10,000 kerja. Umur 18 tahun, 17 tahun, 18 tahun, tak pernah kerja, baru rasa nak kerja dengan rasa enticed oh good lord, didorong untuk duduk dekat KL dengan gaji 10,000, siapa tak nak kan? Ramai-ramai datang naik van pergi KL. Bila pergi KL kata okey nanti ada orang tunggu. Sekali bila ada orang tunggu, yang perempuan dipaksa jadi pelacur, yang lelaki pun ada juga yang dipaksa jadi pelacur, ada juga yang dipaksa jadi peminta sedekah, kaki you all kena potong, ataupun seorang tu mungkin dalam 2-3 orang lagi dihantar dekat rumah orang kaya-kaya untuk jadi pembantu rumah dia orang, and then you all tak diberi makan, tak diberi gaji, hanya bekerja sahaja. Okay, itu dia tak paksa you, dia tak exploit you, tapi dia menipu. So deception happens in as a result of the recruitment that is in itself criminal. Sebab orang-orang macam ni adalah ejen-ejen yang tidak berbayar. Untuk menjadi ejen kena mengikut undang-undang. Kalau you tak mengikut undang-undang, you can it renders the whole practice illegal or even criminal to a lot of extent. Yeah. Dan sekiranya macam ada yang dipaksa melacur, contohnya jadi pelacur, pekerja seks. Sebab Malaysia tak macam negara-negara lain, contohnya di Netherlands, kalau tak silap, pekerja seks adalah pekerjaan yang tidak melanggar undang-undang. In fact, sex workers are made to pay tax. Tapi di Malaysia tidak. Jadi perkara yang dilarang adalah perkara yang criminal, bersifat jenayah dekat situ. Jadi kita boleh tengok human trafficking, kalau orang selalu sebut human trafficking ni pelacuran ataupun budak-budak minta sedekah kan, kena ada ejen, tak semestinya. Kadang-kadang pekerja-pekerja binaan pun ada juga. Kadang-kadang pekerja di restoran pun ada juga. Kadang-kadang kalau kita tengok kan dekat restoran tu ada ramai orang yang macam bekerja, mungkin mereka tak dibayar gaji, mereka tak berikan apa-apa perlindungan, mereka tidak di-hire ataupun digajikan menurut lunas-lunas peruntukan di dalam akta buruh contohnya. Sebab untuk you bekerja, bos ada undang-undang yang patut dipatuhi sebagai bos, yang mana kalau dia tak ikut peruntukan ataupun spesifikasi tu, they can then be either charged or liable under any civil claims in either the labor court or the industrial court. Okay, jadi dekat dalam keadaan-keadaan macam ni, macam-macam boleh berlaku. Dan kita tengok dia punya modus operandi dia, like I said, student visa, and then the debt bondage. That means, you are, somehow in debt with me for example, certain sum of money, and you tak boleh bayar, kata, okay fine, you tak boleh bayar, jom ikut I pergi KL. Okay, and then I serahkan you kat mana-mana, and then you all bekerja untuk melunaskan hutang tu. That is entirely wrong in both, civil and criminal laws. Salah, sangat salah. Dan juga biasanya yang paling senang, mangsa yang paling simple adalah refugees lah, ataupun orang yang mendapat perlindungan ataupun suaka, bukan suaka politik, orang-orang asylum seekers, yang mana mereka datang untuk dapat perlindungan tapi mereka dijanjikan ataupun dia silenced or threatened into agreeing with someone to work for him or her, and should they refuse, then they can be deported. They are told that they are to be deported to their countries of origin, and that's the very last thing that these refugees want, because they do not spend days and night hoping to escape or flee from the country, and yet they're told that they might be flown back to their countries of origin. And for these not to happen to them, then they might want, or they might be expected to do certain things that are criminal in nature. Contohnya macam saya cakap tadi, menjadi pekerja seks ataupun menjadi apa-apa yang domestic workers, ataupun kanak-kanak jadi child labor, peminta sedekah dan sebagainya. Ya. And kalau kita tengok balik dekat sini, kalau kita tengok trajectory tu, semua adalah masalah-masalah yang dihadapi. Dan kalau tadi I'm very interested, I was in fact listening attentively to the brief introduction on the matter by the moderator a while ago on the state of things ataupun keadaan dalam Malaysia berkenaan dengan human trafficking. As a lawyer, I think I'm rather embarrassed to admit that I think the laws that we have are not enough. I think the government is not doing enough, or all governments daripada dulu sampai sekarang. I don't think whatever the government of the day is, this matter is not tackled to the core. It's not entirely sorted out. It's not even entirely attempted to be sorted effectively, tak langsung. Sebab kita mempunyai undang-undang, of course, we do have the law that regulates this criminal practice, and yet the enforcement is such that I think just leaves a lot to be desired. Sangat banyak yang kena ubah, dan it is very good that you're having all these talks, because we are raising awareness. You young people, must do something to raise awareness. Sebab kadang-kadang dia macam saya cakap, macam ni lah kalau kita tengok trajectory dekat bawah tu, illegal work on student visa. Not necessarily the case, sebab kalau mana-mana international students di Malaysia, ataupun if you are an international student yourself studying abroad, of course there are provisions, there are somehow allowance in terms of your liberty to work, but within a certain hours. Tetapi of course kalau if you can make more bucks, then why not, right? Jadi ramai orang cuba nak buat, but they have recourse to all these illegal practices. Trapped in legal limbo, macam contohnya dalam kes refugees ataupun orang yang datang untuk minta perlindungan politik, untuk mendapatkan kad daripada pertubuhan-pertubuhan berkenaan dengan perlindungan politik contohnya, but they do not get it yet, or maybe they're still in the midst of getting it, but while waiting for it, while hoping for it to be issued for them to then live peacefully in Malaysia, they would have to do this criminal acts. They allow themselves, but they are deceived, or by virtue of pressure they are forced to choose things of this nature. Prostitution, construction labor, sementara nak tunggu dapat kan license contohnya, ataupun kad perlindungan, mereka terpaksa buat sebab semua orang nak survive sekarang. Forced into prostitution. Prostitution sangat rampant di Malaysia. Sebenarnya banyak kes, banyak tangkapan-tangkapan yang dibuat, tetapi banyak juga sebenarnya yang hanya didakwa pelacur itulah, maknanya mangsa human trafficking itu sendirilah. Tapi ini anak-anak ikan, ni ikan kampau, ikan jos, semua ni semua tak dapat. Jadi I would say it's because of the law. The law has to be there to help solve the solution from top to toe. Dan of course, terrible living conditions. Jika seorang dalam keadaan yang miskin, yang mana tak ada duit, tak ada apa-apa akses pada makanan, pada pelajaran, pada suasana hidup yang selesa, bukan mewah tapi selesa. Mereka terpaksa buat macam ni sebab nak dapat duit, and they allow they just have no choice in the matter. Dan inilah selalunya terjadi kes-kes eksploitasi. Okay, kes eksploitasi maksud dia orang tengok you dalam keadaan susah, you terdesak, and then I approach you and then I say, hey, you know what, I'm on my way to KL this afternoon, and there might be someone whom I think you might want to work with, and hey, the return is rather lucrative, so why not join me? People pergi, okay, and then upon being told that the work is something of whatever that I've just listed down a while ago, contohnya pelacuran, you tahu pelacuran tu salah, you tahu you tak nak buat, but because of the condition, kalau aku balik kampung, aku tak ada kerja, aku miskin, but at least kalau aku buat benda macam ni, I boleh survive dan I boleh bagi duit dekat family. Tapi you dikawal ketat oleh orang tu supaya you tak lari ataupun you tak tipu dan sebagainya. So that's when trafficking happens. So it is a very delicate thing. It is not as simple as you committing or you doing something and you are caught and then you are brought to court, you are prosecuted, decision is handed down and you are punished. It is not as simple as that, because there is actually a massive amount of emotional pressure or emotional consideration that needs to be taken for this human, or for people who are either trafficking or trafficked into this illegal activity of human trafficking. Banyak sangat kena consider. So policymakers must do something. Then law definitely has to either be changed or amended or overhauled entirely. Yeah. Can we go to the next slide, please? Ni banyak sangat kalau kita tengok how to combat human trafficking. I do not propose to talk at great length about the legal framework in respect of human trafficking per se. Tetapi this is what I've said. Kita ada undang-undang berkaitan dengan human trafficking. Untuk kita tahu benda paling basic sekali, since semua orang dekat sini kan, I hope my audience is very excited to know about, or maybe after you've listened to this, you might want to go back and research more on the law that we have in respect of human trafficking. So we have this thing called Anti-Trafficking in Person and Anti-Smuggling of Migrants Act 2007, ataupun kita boleh tulis je Anti-Trafficking Act, akan keluar semua tu. Jadi kalau kita tengok balik dekat situ, ada beberapa section daripada bahagian 3 dan bahagian 3A akta tersebut ada menjelaskan satu-satu kesalahan yang mana saya telah terangkan secara general, tapi ini lagi spesifik berserta dengan hukuman sekiranya sabitan dibuat sekiranya mahkamah mendapati tertuduh itu bersalah. So the punishment actually varies from imprisonment and fine, and the range of which may vary likewise. Jadi kena tengok betul-betul dekat situ. Kalau kita tengok balik dekat situ, sebenarnya macam I've been telling you that the laws are very insufficient to fight against human trafficking. Why? Sebab kalau kita tengok hukuman penjara, ada yang tak melebihi 3 tahun, ada yang berserta dengan fine ataupun denda yang tidak dinyatakan. Jadi we see this sense of or lack of seriousness in the matter. Human trafficking, kalau kita tengok dalam drug trafficking, pemerdagangan dadah, pemilikan dadah, kita ada Dangerous Drugs Act, yang mana dalam section 39B, seseorang itu sekiranya didapati mengedar, memiliki dan mengedar, mereka boleh dikenakan hukuman gantung sampai mati, death penalty. Of course, an argument can be made about whether or not we still should retain the death penalty. But the point I'm making here is that we know because there is death penalty, we can know how serious, how grave the crime is, that someone can be condemned to death if found guilty of the offence. Tetapi dekat pemerdagangan manusia yang mana sama juga, bukan mengedar manusia, memerdagangkan orang yang bernyawa, memerdagangkan kanak-kanak, memerdagangkan wanita, and yet the punishment is not seen as serious and grave as that of the law in respect of trafficking of drugs as per the Dangerous Drugs Act. So that's something that we might want to go back and think about, because that's not well what it is that we need in this country. Yeah. Dan civil society, of course, civil society sangat penting untuk membantu. Contohnya, kita ada macam-macam lah. Kita ada sebenarnya human trafficking, you don't necessarily need one specific NGO to help with sheltering the trafficked person. We do have a law respecting sheltering a trafficked person or victims in this matter, but we can actually rely on each other so long as one has the awareness. Macam apa yang you all tengah buat sekarang ni, it's very good. So sebab you tahu, at least pemerdagangan manusia itu adalah perkara-perkara yang dilakukan oleh seseorang berdasarkan rekrutmen yang bercorak, menipu, mengeksploitasi dan juga paksaan. Jadi sebenarnya benda paling simple kalau kita nak tengok kat sini macam ni lah. Kalau you tengok dekat jalan tengah makan, ada budak-budak minta sedekah, kan? Budak-budak minta sedekah. Mungkin ada dua cara, there are two possibilities. Either, well, the kid genuinely hails from a family of unfortunate financial circumstances. Parents tak ada duit, terpaksa anak-anak dan ibu bapa. Tapi kalau mak bapak tak nampak, kita nampak macam ada agent yang jaga sampai ramai-ramai, that is definitely a case of human trafficking dekat situ. Sebab itulah bila cakap pasal human trafficking ni, dia dikawal oleh satu undang-undang yang, again, I think I'm saying this for the 10th time, the law is not enough. It is not sufficient that we have the law as it is if we want to have that law to rely on in fight against human trafficking. So you people, I mean, you ASiS people, you are brilliant kids who will someday, become lawmakers, law enforcers, lawyers, much better than the existing lawyers that we have in the country today, myself included. So you go out, tell the world this is what is happening, and what needs to be done is the tightening of laws and regulations and policies. Okay, I have been made to understand that I am to speak until 4, but again, I do not propose to give a law lecture on human trafficking. Nanti semua tidur, I tahu. Ni pun I tahu ada orang tidur juga agaknya. Then no one really, well, I wouldn't say that this is a very boring subject to reckon with, no, but I would prefer interactive session. So I think I shall stop here, and perhaps I can open the floor for questions or answers or comments or critique. Yeah, over to you, Hazif, Akil, sorry.
Touch Miza.
Thank you for the session, Mr. Azlan. Let us move on to the question and answer session. Audience in the Zoom meeting can ask away in the chat box and we will relay them to Mr. Azlan.
Oh, actually, I'm seeing a lot of faces around here, so you might just want to unmute yourself and ask me straight in the face.
We can do that too.
This is how it works. Okay, fantastic. Go on. Any questions? Come on, tanya I soalan. Hari ni I ada meeting, I ada court petang, I cancel semua I punya court, I punya meeting to join this. Kalau sesiapa tak tanya soalan, aku bakar asrama kau. Okay, go on, darling.
I think
sorry, who is this? There are many faces around. It's Haras. Okay.
Yes.
Yes, Haras, go on.
It is an interesting topic to be talking about. Like, it's refreshing for me to learn this kind of a new knowledge, not knowing about human trafficking and all, and you've been explaining about it for almost an hour. And my question is, what do you think that the government should do in order to overcome this problem actually?
Oh, very simple actually. First, and the most important thing that our politicians must do at once is stop being monkeys for a while and really sit down and talk about it. Bukannya menjerit-jerit dekat parlimen, semua nak cakap-cakap pasal itu ini. That's actually the last thing that you might want to do. Okay? So, kena ada, this is what we call political will. Because as a lawyer, I practice the law. I call myself a practicing lawyer. What does that mean? It simply means I am practicing the law as it is, as it stands. I cannot change the law. I try to convince the judge to agree with my interpretation of the law as it stands. I'm not telling the court, I don't go to court and tell the judge, look, this is what the law is bad, it must be changed from A to B.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. The changing of the law lies in the hands of the lawmakers. So who are the lawmakers? The ones making the law are those now sitting in parliament. So long as there is what we call political will for them to first and most importantly recognize is ada masalah. There is a problem. Try to acknowledge that there is an existence of a problem. And second, ask yourself this: what are the problems berkenaan dengan human trafficking, berkenaan dengan undang-undang untuk menangani human trafficking, dan juga, and the third question that they should ask is this: what laws do we have in place as we speak now? And of course, the subsequent question is this: are the laws enough? This is a very tricky question. Well, it is not tricky, it's either yes or no, but orang yang nak melaksanakan, orang yang nak mengubah undang-undang itu, of course, kena ada satu political will, yang mana satu political will itu susah untuk dizahirkan. It's very hard to externalize, let alone put into law as it is. So long as we have our lawmakers very reluctantly moving about under the delusion that, well, there is a problem, but hey, we have a law to solve this, so there's no necessity to change when cases are ever on the rise. This is actually the very last thing that we want from our politicians, from the lawmakers. Yeah. Sebagai seorang peguam, sekiranya ada satu undang-undang berkenaan dengan apa-apa elemen human trafficking, for example, dan terdapat hukuman yang diberikan, sejahat mana sekalipun seseorang itu, selagi mana dituduh di bawah hukuman, di bawah charge ataupun pertuduhan yang mana hukuman dia sangatlah tidak setimpal, it is not my place to come and tell the court it must go up or it must be changed, or my client or perhaps the perpetrator deserves more than what the law prescribes. It does not work that way. I am bound by the law as it is. But who can change the law? Again, the policymakers, the lawmakers. So coming back to your question, Haras, apa yang boleh dibuat? What the government should do is, first of all, like I said, stop being monkeys, stop monkeying around, and really sit down and talk to each other straight in the face to sincerely solve the problem. Yeah. Because the problem wouldn't be solved if everyone is moving about, trying to pretend something that is serious, that is happening, does not exist or does not happen to begin with. Yeah? I hope that answers your question.
Kalau macam tu, it's like a general answer, right? For the government, yeah. What should the government do? But in your opinion, what should us, the teenagers that doesn't have a voice in advocacy and also policy discussions, what should we do rather than spreading awareness amongst the students and all? Yeah.
Okay, first of all, you're wrong in saying that you don't have a voice. Everyone has a voice. It's just a matter of who amplifies whose voice. Yeah. You ada suara, semua ada suara yang kau terpekik terlolong dekat bigo apa semua tu. So there is a thing called suara, right? Okay. But how we amplify, how we strengthen, how we how strong we vocalize the cadence of our voice from our throat is entirely up to us. Betul. It's a very legit question. Tadi you tanya general solution, political will, blah, blah, blah. But again, both you and I do not sit in parliament. We do not talk. We do not yell to each other. Yeah.
Mhm.
Benda paling simple. Actually, it's something that I have been telling everyone that they can do, that no one can stop them, is first of all recognize that you have that voice. Pertama sekali. Yang kedua, kita hari-hari mungkin dulu kalau kita duduk simple instance macam ni je. Kalau dulu kita pergi makan, kalau dulu lah, sekarang tak boleh kan. Kalau kita pergi makan, of course kita akan nampak budak-budak minta sedekah apa semua. Itu macam saya cakap tadi, itu dah red flag. Okay, of course I faham. You bukan you pun, I pun bukannya kuat, penakut. Kalau kita macam nak jerit, oh siapa ni, you nak menentang agent, menentang gangster, and of course the very last thing that you want to compromise is your safety, kan? Tapi benda yang you at least boleh lakukan, pergi ke balai polis. Pergi balai polis, buat laporan. Buat laporan ni, okay, ni ramai tak faham bila buat laporan polis ni tak semestinya bila ada benda-benda yang tak nak, yang unfortunate, unfavorable events berlaku baru kita nak buat. Buat report polis ni even atas dasar suspicion, sekiranya you ada reason untuk syak sesuatu yang tak baik, tidak mengikut undang telah berlaku, kita boleh buat. Actually nak buat laporan polis ni sebenarnya kucing you mati pun you boleh buat laporan polis. You clash pun you boleh buat laporan polis sebenarnya. Dalam undang-undang polis tak ada hak untuk halau you keluar daripada balai polis just because buat laporan polis sebab kucing mati ataupun sebab clash. Kan, tapi janganlah jadi buruk sangat dia. Awak adalah sekolah pandai, tak kalah nak pergi balai polis sebab clash kan. So all that I'm saying is this, that everyone has every right to go to the police station to convey or communicate the thought that one has. If one has the suspicion that something wrong or criminal is going on. Kalau you nampak ada orang-orang, contohnya dalam kes kanak-kanak child labor, kan, kanak-kanak ada orang yang budak-budak minta sedekah and you think there's something wrong. I don't think actually the kid is here with the entire legit members of the family because of the unfortunate financial circumstances. It could not be the case in most instances. You rasa mesti ada gangster, mesti ada agent, mesti ada orang di sebaliknya, and you think that something needs to be done and you are asking me now what to do about it. Make yourself present in the police station and report this suspicion that you have. At least you boleh buat macam tu. Of course, bila kita kata pasal raising awareness, apa yang kita boleh buat sebagai remaja, when you and I are talking in this manner, we are actually operating within privilege in that we both are educated, we can get to talk or speak out whatever it is that's retained in our mind without having to fear for the consequences, because while we have access to education, we have access to all the positive means that many people are forced to live without, right? Jadi tapi again, bercakap saja tak cukup. When we talk about this and what's happening, there are still kids going from table to table asking for money, and if they do not secure enough amount of money, then they might risk being beaten up by whoever it is that is taking care of these kids. Kan? Jadi do something, because there is definitely something that can be done by us on our own accord, our own personal effort in our personal individual capacity.
Yeah.
Cuma jangan takut, pergi balai tak ada apa-apa. Hari-hari aku pergi balai polis, tak ada apa-apa.
Okay. I want to ask.
Yes.
What if someone was the victim of human trafficking and he get caught by the police because doesn't have any visa? So what is the law that gonna be applied in that case?
Dalam keadaan macam ni can be two things. Bila seseorang itu ditangkap oleh polis, it can be a good thing, can be a bad thing for him. Okay, but I'm not saying it's a good thing that he's been involved in trafficking, that it's very unfortunate that he gets caught eventually. Doesn't work that way. Yeah. If someone gets caught and that person happens to be a victim of trafficking, is that your question, Akhil?
Yes.
Then actually you've come to safety. You've come to safety, first of all, to save yourself from this barbaric act of trafficking. So your suffering ends. But that act of being caught to safety, I would say, because, well, you're running away from trafficking, right? Unless you are the agent or involved in the act of trafficking. But again, if you're caught to safety without being able to provide or present any form of identification, then a different law will apply alongside the law in respect of human trafficking law. And that would be laws regarding perhaps immigration, where you risk being deported to your countries of origin. So that's actually, I don't think it's sad, because if you intend to come to Malaysia with an intention of working legally, and yet for a number of years you are forced to do something illegal and criminal and barbaric and against every tenet of morality that you hold, then why stay? Why stay?
Okay.
I'm sorry. Again, I'm very stupid when it comes to technology. I see questions popping up from YouTube. Well, feel free to stop me and ask questions. Yeah, I mean, from whichever means. I mean, I'm responding to you because I can see literally many faces on the screen, but I understand that there are other mediums through which this talk is being held. Right?
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
There's one question from YouTube. What is the most usually case, but most people doesn't realize it until they get some consequences? And have you fought for cases like these?
Okay. First of all, I do not disclose the nature of or the identities of my client, but I am pretty much aware of what is happening, having been involved in the practice of criminal law in general with this very limited years of experience that I have. And coming back to the question, apa yang akan berlaku? Sorry, siapa tanya soalan tadi tu? Apa? Siapa yang akan?
From YouTube.
A question
Yeah,
from
yeah, sorry. What was the question again, Sadi?
What is the most usually case, but most people doesn't realize it until they get some consequences?
Yeah, again, macam I cakap tadi lah, benda simple yang kita selalu nampak. Kita tak perlu nak cakap pasal kartel pelacuran, kartel ni semua, tak perlu. Kita perlu, kalau kita pergi dekat kedai makan, kita tengok this group of kid beggars going around from table to table asking for money, and they seem very anxious if they do not secure enough amount of money expected from them on that daily basis, then something is definitely a concern. It is definitely a red flag that kita kena concern lah, kan? Sebab macam saya cakap tadi, contohnya child labor, ataupun kalau kita tengok kat mana-mana site, construction sites, not everyone is with permit, not everyone is doing it based on what has been agreed upon between them and their region, and by extension their employers, and what they might be working under the delusion that they are getting certain amount of money, but that is not certainly the case at the end of the day, when they receive much lesser than what was promised. And that is not just them or him or her individually. It could be a throng of people, a really big convey of human beings involved in this business. Jadi benda yang kita nampak hari-hari, kita selalu jalan drive kereta, tengok dekat construction sites atau tengok kat restaurants, kita nampak hari-hari. And this is something that we have become very either oblivious to or desensitized with, because we think it's normal. The fact that we see that every day, I mean, we are normalized into seeing all these things that we have come to a conclusion that, it is normal, it's fine, and definitely I'm not going to be part of it, because the very last thing I want to do is compromising my safety or the safety of my family. Again, the fact that it's normal doesn't mean it's right. You think it's right despite knowing it's normal, because you are normalized into this act of crime. So kalau benda yang macam selalu jadi, yang kita tak tahu, sampailah kita tahu, sampai kita sedar ada consequences dia, ini adalah keadaan-keadaan yang sangat simple macam saya jelaskan tadi. Kita tak perlu nak jadi James Bond atau nak jadi Jackie Chan pergi kat ceruk gangsters untuk cari, tak perlu. Kita boleh tengok hari-hari. It happens every day. Well, it could be happening downstairs outside of my area of residence. It could be you might just want to pop your head out of the window and see around the residence if something is of concern that you might want to act on. It's everywhere. It's prevalent. It's rampant. It's ubiquitous. Okay, next question. I hope that answers your question, or the question from the individual on YouTube.
I have a question.
Yes, Kalish.
Are there international organizations that are fighting for this cause? And if there is, what are some of them?
Oh, there are actually many. Kalau kita tengok balik, we go back to the very basic principle of human rights law or the international human rights law. Kita we have international human rights either instrument or organ or laws. Kita ada benda paling, kalau kita tengok balik benda paling simple, bukan benda paling simple, I'm not saying that it's simple. Benda paling basic kita boleh tengok dekat dalam Rome Statute, sorry, not Rome Statute. Kalau kita tengok balik dekat The Hague, we have this International Court of Justice, kan? Dekat International Court of Justice, yang mana, ataupun kita ada International Criminal Court di The Hague, yang mana undang-undang antarabangsa terpakai berkenaan dengan pembunuhan beramai-ramai, berkenaan dengan perang yang melibatkan wanita dan kanak-kanak. Dan of course, bila kita sebut perdagangan manusia secara global, banyak undang-undang. Kalau kita tengok semua akta-akta, of course there are many, I cannot think top of the head, but if you look, if you focus on the context of international human rights law within the area of legal instrument or legal organs, kan, kita ada United Nations. Pergi kat United Nations, macam-macam ada dekat situ. Jadi, tapi again, masalah dengan international bodies ataupun international law, sekiranya sesuatu negara itu tidak mengiktiraf undang-undang, sekiranya kita Malaysia, kita ratify apa-apa convention berkenaan dengan isu-isu berkaitan dengan human rights in general, tetapi kita tak codify, kita tak ada undang-undang sendiri yang mengawal perkara tersebut, kita jelas teruk macam mana sekalipun hukuman di dalam convention, ataupun teruk macam mana sekalipun seseorang itu dicerca di mata organisasi-organisasi international, dia tidak akan terpakai di Malaysia. Tidak akan terpakai sebab the law is very clear. The law in Malaysia is very clear. Whatever it is that you have, whatever conventions, ratifications, human rights instruments that you have, where Malaysia is a party to that very instrument or convention or ratification, so long as the parliament does not make law or codify these ratifications, these conventions into the law dalam buku akta, that law does not apply. That law is never applicable in this country. Contohnya macam kalau kita tengok, okay, tak semestinya dalam kes human trafficking, dulu kita ada isu apa, ICET contohnya, kita ada CEDAW, Convention on Eliminations of All Forms of Violations Against Women, yang mana ini adalah international instrument, tapi Malaysia tidak mengiktiraf. Bila saya kata tak mengiktiraf, maknanya we do not incorporate these terms into the law in Malaysia. Kita tidak menyalin menjadi undang-undang yang dibukukan. It does not work. So you cannot argue there is a law that is recognized internationally and therefore it must be applied in Malaysia, or it must defeat the lack of serious punishment in Malaysia. You cannot argue the law on that basis, because we have what we call the supremacy of the law in Malaysia, where it applies what it makes. When I say it, the parliament makes, or the parliament enacts, to the exclusion of all these outside instruments. So it's a very interesting question that you're posing there, Kalish. Going back to the question you've asked, the simple answer to that is banyak, sangat banyak. Tapi whether or not it is applicable, whether or not it effectively applies in Malaysia, not necessarily. Bila saya kata not necessarily, tidak semestinya, because again, I'm repeating the answer I've just given. You may have thousands of conventions, international conventions on human trafficking on human trafficking, that Malaysia ratifies, that Malaysia is a party to. But if the parliament very unfortunately decides against incorporating these terms or these laws or these conventions into the domestic law in Malaysia, there is no way that can be applied domestically. So I'm giving you a very simple answer with a lot of intricate issues that need, again, solution. Boleh, memang banyak, tapi sama ada dijalankan di Malaysia, sama ada diaplikasikan di Malaysia, tak semestinya. Sekiranya tidak dibukukan sebagai undang-undang. I hope that answers your question.
Hello, I want to ask a question.
Hello, it's Jose. Yeah.
Okay, do victims always come from a low income or poor background only?
Oh, not necessarily, but that is usually the case. Kan, macam like I've said a while ago, it can either be by way of deception, threat, or exploitation arising from this criminal recruitment. Kenapa you nak bekerja? You nak bekerja sebab you nak dapat duit, kan? And you tahu kalau you tak ada qualification, tak ada degree, tak ada apa, nak jadi professional, tak boleh. It's out of question. But you need easy money. You need fast money. So then, the easiest way to go about it is to find the easiest man to deal. Jadi, kenapa ramai orang buat macam ni? Of course, the problem has got to do with the issue of poverty, but that's not necessarily the case. Kadang-kadang ada orang lari rumah, konon-konon, remaja yang memberontak ikut boyfriend sebab nak rasa kebebasan, not because of poverty, not because of financial restraint. You could come from a family of great wealth, but because of the lacking happiness within the family, that you are then forced to flee from home to the supposed safety to be provided by your partner, who then smuggles you into this act of criminal activity of human trafficking. Jadi itu berkaitan dengan berpunca daripada masalah emosi. Tapi most of all, I would say it hails or it flows from the issue of poverty. Bila tak ada duit, nak duit dengan cepat ataupun mungkin keadaan memaksa, terpaksalah buat macam tu. Kalau kita tengok balik budak-budak yang minta sedekah, bukannya diorang datang daripada negara-negara yang ataupun mereka berasal daripada family-family yang berduit. Kalau kita tengok orang-orang pelacur-pelacur, bukannya mereka suka nak buat ataupun mereka berasal dari keluarga senang and they do prostitution as a matter of hobby or as a matter of individual preference, and that wouldn't be prostitution. They would well do that for pleasure and no monetary return is to be expected, but they are doing it because of the financial restraint. Without that, or without this promise, this lucrative heavenly promise of financial pleasure, they can never leave their home where nothing is possible to be put on the table for breakfast, lunch, dinner for them, let alone the other members of the family. So going back to your question, it comes majorly from the issues of poverty, financial destitute, but it is not the only reason why people or victims are trafficked or deceived into this criminal act of human trafficking.
Excuse me, can I answer the question?
Yes, definitely.
So, looking from an international standpoint, like, do you think that human trafficking is essential to the stability of the underground economy of such poor nations such as Nigeria? So, like, they have like an underground economical state. Like, do you think that human trafficking is essential to the stability of underground economy for like poor nations?
I'm sorry, is it Inash asking? Yeah,
Inash.
Right, Inash. Help me understand. Are you asking whether or not human trafficking is a very positive contribution to the economy of a country?
Is it? I mean, like some nations, like it's like
yeah, they benefit from human trafficking because they traffic people to other countries. Well, my dear, the very fact that it gives money does not mean that it's legal. The very fact that you are rewarded with a very beautiful facial and bodily feature that justifies prostitution in your area does not make the act actually legal and moral. Yeah, just because, of course, Nigeria, okay, it's very good that you're pointing this out. Sebab banyak negara-negara yang terlibat dengan human trafficking, mereka dapat duit sebab you provide humans untuk jadi either kanak-kanak buruh kanak-kanak, pelacur dan sebagainya kan. And it gives the money, but does it go to the country? It goes to you. Of course, you can. There's no such thing as boosting up the economy. It's boosting up personal economy of the person involved in the act of trafficking himself. If you talk about boosting the economy of a country or benefiting financially from the act of human trafficking, I do not even want to begin sanctioning the very legitimacy of the question, because it's a very good question, yes. Kalau kita tengok daripada solely from the economic viewpoint, but again, the fact that it is, how can we reap the fruit or the fruit of others' labor when something is done without the consent and arising from, again, exploitation, threat, and deception? What nation are we reducing ourselves into? I hope that answers the question, Inash. And that's something for me to think about as well, because if you solely think about money, then any Tom, Dick, and Harry can go about doing anything, lock, stock, and barrel, without thinking of the morality, the legality, the legitimacy of the act. then what are we reducing ourselves into? What are we even, what courage do we have to even call ourselves human beings with equal rights and dignity? Because everyone is very excited to, raise the placard of, well, equality, justice, and what justice are we talking about? Is justice is deprived of a person in favor of personal or even national economy. Think about it.
I have a question.
Yes.
As a lawyer,
Mm-hmm.
how often do you face cases regarding the human trafficking? And if do, please share your
Mm-hmm.
experience facing those cases.
Well, actually, again, human trafficking. Okay, I'm no criminal expert. I have had matters, not necessarily involving human trafficking per se, but the circumstances might vary. Yeah, yang mana dipaksa, ada unsur-unsur paksaan, ada unsur-unsur penipuan, tetapi bukanlah yang menjurus atau terjumlah kepada human trafficking itu sendiri. Lebih kepada dipaksa di antara dua individu, pasangan bercinta yang mana dipaksa untuk buat sesuatu yang dia tak nak. Itu bukan human trafficking. Ya, tapi what I'm really hoping to deliver here is the realization that we all have our rights, we all have our own individual, strong, loud, clear voice to speak out against it, either as a victim, touch wood, but if that be as a victim or as an observer who happens to see this unfortunate act, we must always use that voice and double it up to so that it reaches the hearing of others and do something about it. Benda paling simple kita boleh tengok kalau benda tu berlaku, kita rasa tak puas hati, it's not, you do not simply go to social media and put it up, pop, okay, I have done my job as a, citizen of the country, a law-abiding citizen by actually putting that up, do something about it, go to the police station, make a report and make the enforcers do the rest of the work when, and make sure that you do your part as well. So coming back to the question, saya sendiri tidak pernah dalam kes berskala besar, tapi cukup melibatkan apabila berlaku eksploitasi secara seksual, antara lain, yang mana saya nampak masalah dia adalah lack of empowerment. Lack of empowerment means deep down that there is a problem, deep down there is something wrong with it, but you do not have enough courage to stand up and do something about it, either as a victim or someone who has knowledge of this conflict. So do something. I'm advising you as I am myself, because, well, we both are equally human beings with many weaknesses. So empower ourselves. Yeah. It's 4 by my clock. I'm not certain if it's 4 by yours, but hey, feel free.
Anyone have a question?
Yeah, semua orang dah boring nak tidur Sorry, I heard. Sorry, I can see mouth moving, but I cannot hear.
Oh, sorry.
Right, that's you. Right.
Okay. So this is a question from YouTube, from Hanim Zahra.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think Malaysia have enough resources to combat this issue?
Well, I do not speak on behalf of the government of the day. I do not have access to the financial resources that the country may have in its possession to justify the current state of things, which I argue to be lacking in terms of empowerment and enforcement. But whether a country is whether or not, or but I think the test that we ought to ask ourselves is this: It does not matter. It matters not whether or not a country is rich. It matters not whether country is in possession of a very rich resource to enforce the law with respect to safeguarding the safety of individuals or the citizens against human trafficking. It matters not whether we have the most intelligent of ministers, but if one dares to call himself a minister, if a country dares or has courage to call itself a country that is independent, i.e. independent of external forces and is capable of taking care of the citizens, it is without fail a responsibility that must be discharged to ensure that safety of the citizens is well and perfectly safeguarded. So whether or not one has enough resources, I think it is not relevant. But if that is to be dived into, I'm definitely not the expert to talk about it. I'm no economist. I do not have any means of support or knowledge in terms of what we have or what the government has or what the government does not have. I am simply a practicing lawyer who practices the law as it is, and my stand is no matter how bad the financial resource, among others, that the country has, it does not act as a justification in disregarding the importance of safeguarding the safety of everyone, all citizens, all nationals, against, of course, the crime of human trafficking and others. Because if you were to rely on the argument, okay, well, the country lacks resources, the country lacks this, and the country does not have enough financial means to combat this. So we are giving in to the circumstances at the expense of ourselves as citizens who, without fail, likewise, have every right to demand safety, equality, and most of all, justice. And justice, again, mind you, must not only be done, it must be seen to be done. We must see it done. Not only we must, it is enough that we satisfy ourselves that it is done, but we must see it done. It must be seen to have been done. And where is justice if justice is not dispensed on the sole excuse of, well, the country does not have money and too bad, live with it. I, as a national, as a citizen of this country, will definitely refuse to accept that very excuse. So I think that's the take that everyone has to take as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question.
Hello, Fahad. Yeah.
According to the trend of recent years, is human trafficking increasing or decreasing?
Oh, actually, it's very interesting that you asked this question because right after I was informed that I was to give a talk on this, I did a bit of research, and it is actually a phenomenon that is quite uniform in practice throughout the world, in that it is always on the rise. And of course, I'm not happy, but I just thought it was a bit peculiar that everyone is rather uniform or working in tandem when it comes to producing statistic of this nature. I came across a statistic of this manner and fashion a few days back, and to my surprise, it is on the rise. And I'm not surprised why it is on the rise, because when we have, again, the set of law and regulations regarding this in a manner that it is at present, one should not be surprised why it is never going down. If anything, it skyrockets. Again, it goes back to the question, what can be done, what should be done, and what must be done without fail. Right, any questions? Go on. No questions?
I
Yeah, I think.
no.
Yeah, I think what you might
I do
want to
have
do
one
again, of
question.
course. Oh, sorry, who's speaking?
Hi, Mr. Alan. I'm Ainin from the Council
Oh.
Movement.
Hi, Ainin.
My question is, when the victims, I'm not sure if this question has been asked or not, but I'm just going to ask away. So
Please do.
when
Yeah.
victims of human trafficking are rescued by our local authorities, is their safety ensured?
Oh, yes, definitely. Okay. Well, again, we have the law. If you look, always fall back on this authority that I've mentioned a while ago, Anti-Trafficking in Person and Anti-Smuggling of Migrants Act, 2007. So if we were to look deeply into that statute ataupun akta, not only does the statute provide offenses and punishments of that offenses if or of these offenses is found guilty, not necessarily that, because there are many parts that are inherent within that statute. So one of those is, again, the offenses, the punishments, and there is one very significant part, bahagian of the statute, that spells out the mechanism or the way in which a person trafficked can be sheltered or can be removed from where he or she is sheltered on the basis of safety by virtue of the permission of the minister. So that is a statutory provision, or what we say permission, that the law gives for the trafficked persons or the victims to be secured their safety. And in fact, kalau kita tengok dalam satu peruntukan di dalam Akta 2007 ni, any reporting, any mass media reporting of the incident of human trafficking, whether or not the matter has not reached the court or is in the middle of being prosecuted in court, or even after the decision has been handed down, shall not at all reveal anything that lead to the discovery or the identity of the victims. This is to ensure that the identity is secured, the safety, and of course, I think psychological considerations are attached very greatly to that as well. So, simple answer to the question, yes, Ainin. Boleh tengok dekat
Thank you,
akta.
Mr. Alan.
Not at all a problem.
I have another question following up to that.
Yes,
that
please.
the situation is that we have a few Rohingyans who are trafficked into Malaysia, kan? And then these Rohingyans are then rescued by the authorities. And they feel that they're much safer here in Malaysia and wish to stay here. So what becomes of their status? Are they still victims of human trafficking, or are they now refugees?
Well, again, I think this goes back to the question that I think the first three one of the students asked at the start of my talk today. What if a person is caught and he is found not to be in possession of any legitimate identification that is to be recognized by the law, i.e. passport ke apa ke, kan? So the law on human trafficking works in tandem with other sets of existing laws in the country. Jadi kalau seseorang, if a person is trafficked into Malaysia and is again caught to safety or saved into the bosom of the law, Malaysian law, but refuses to return to his or her own country of origin and wishes to stay in Malaysia, definitely he or she can attempt, of course, by through the aid of NGOs, thankfully, in many instances, to apply for formal identification of formal status as refugee in Malaysia to be processed and issued at the end of the day. So it can be done. Sebab banyak contohnya kes-kes yang tak semestinya kes-kes yang melibatkan human trafficking saja, kadang-kadang dalam kes-kes civil biasa ataupun kes-kes minor offences, minor criminal offences yang mana ditangkap dan dalam masa yang sama tak boleh nak dihantar semula ke negara asal sebab dia dalam proses untuk mendapatkan ataupun authority dalam usaha untuk mendapatkan status refugee untuk mereka. Padahal bila dihadapkan di mahkamah di atas kesalahan lain. Tetapi deportation does not apply because deportation only applies when there is absence of formal document. But there is none, but it is at the time of the arrest or at the time of the charge, that very document is in the midst of either being secured or processed or retrieved. So another set of law applies through the help of NGOs and in many instances, and the law does have regard to it. Ainin? Is that all right?
Yes. Thank you very much. I
Okay.
apologize for the repeated questions, though. I came in halfway, so I
No,
missed
no,
the first half.
No, not at all problem. I think that's good for the benefit of those who may not have heard the answers of provided a while ago.
I think that is all for our Q&A session for today. I believe that every questions are well answered. I just would like to say thank you, Mr. Alan, for coming to this ceremony. It's such an honor to having you this afternoon. Don't forget, for those who participate in this workshop, don't forget to click on the link in the chat box to fill in your forms to get your e-certificate of participation for today's workshop.